You can read the full recommendations at blackhome.dc.gov, blackhome.dc.gov, to understand what is in that full report in terms of advancing Black home ownership in Washington, D.C. On another front, we are calling all D.C. clergy. We are calling all D.C. clergy. Let me repeat that. We're calling all D.C. clergy to stand together tomorrow at the Wilson Building as we call on the mayor and the D.C. Council to seek legal charges, legal actions against the governors of Texas, Florida, and Arizona. As you know, they have been busing migrants into D.C. These migrants often have been lied to and to get on the bus, told things that were not true. They have traveled often without meals, without medication, not knowing where they were going and not knowing who they were going to meet when they get there, getting on the buses and being removed from various states, Texas and Florida and Arizona, without their consent. Now, that sounds like human trafficking to me. I am thankful for all the faith groups and all the mutual aid groups and others receiving and caring for these migrants. But unless we say foul, unless we say that what these governors are doing is callous, racist, immoral, and illegal, then we're giving aid and comfort to their racist and white supremacist actions. Texas, Arizona, and Florida are at the bottom of the list for states delivering social services to their residents under normal circumstances. These states are far under par to what D.C. does. That is not a state. We take care of our residents and we take care of others as they come into our town. We receive others as they come in and we offer to them a welcome. We are proud of D.C. and all the organizations expressing a value of welcome, while Texas, Arizona, and Florida does the opposite. We're calling all D.C. clergy to come and stand together tomorrow morning, Thursday, October 13th at 10 a.m., as we ask the mayor and the council to stand up loudly and boldly for justice. That is tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Wilson Building, and we hope to see you there. I'm pleased to have as our guest this morning someone that I know, someone that is actually joined the church under me, Sister Rahama Wright. She is the founder of Shea Yeleen, a company of beauty products that empowers women producers on the continent of Africa. You've heard from her before, but there's some new exciting news in the mix. But I want to just refresh your memory, and I'm going to ask, welcome Rahama to this, to What's at Stake. And I'm going to ask you to start out by telling people a little bit about Shea Yeleen and the history of it and its origins. Good morning.
Good morning, Reverend Hagler. Thank you so much for inviting me to chat with you this morning. Really excited to have this conversation. As you said, my name is Rahama Wright. I'm the founder of Shea Yeleen, which is a DC-based social impact beauty business I started after serving in the Peace Corps. And what my company does is we work with women cooperatives, women-owned cooperatives, now in Northern Ghana, who create wonderful plant-based shea butter that we incorporate into a line of body cleansers and moisturizers. And then we sell those products through select US retailers. Last year, we launched with Macy's. We also sell in Whole Foods, and we also have a partnership with MGM Resorts. And by building the supply chain, by building this value chain, we're able to increase women's income 5 times their country's minimum wage, and really looking at addressing systemic rural poverty and giving these women the ability to live at a higher standard simply by taking a traditional product, a traditional practice, a cultural practice in their community, and bringing it to market in a way that's ethical and sustainable.
So how do you identify those groups that you're going to work with on the continent? How do you find them? How do you work with them? What kind of agreements are made?
Yeah, so we actually, in the beginning, it's just based on the fact that I lived in the communities, I traveled through those communities. And over the years, I really let the local people take charge of the communities that we work with. So one of the groups that we work with is like an umbrella organization of cooperatives located at various villages. And so they're the ones that take the leadership. They're the one we help in terms of providing technical assistance support. So helping with like organizing documents, helping with cooperative organizing documents, I should say, helping with training, access to production equipment. So we're a support. We are essentially the facilitators that help them address some of their constraints, but they're the ones that take the leadership. I mean, we work in communities where I don't speak the language. There could be a community where 3 different languages are spoken, local languages. And so I can't take the leadership of like, you know, telling them what to do, or so that's really local leadership, and we just support those local leaders who are women, who are the ones who are organizing their communities in these structures. And then what was the other question you had?
Well, I just want to, how you identified folks and
Okay.
what agreements you created with the types of groups out there, that type of thing.
Yeah, so in terms of agreements, we have contracts, of course. So we're purchasing bulk raw shea. And so one of the things that we do is we make sure that every community that we work with understands our code of ethics. And so, for example, no child labor, having work hours, making sure that people understand they're supposed to have breaks, they're supposed to be able to have lunch, so they're not working, for 10, 12 hours without any breaks. So we go through that and train people on making sure they're following our code of ethics. And then when we purchase our shea, one of the things that we've done over the years is we look at the country's minimum wage data. So in Ghana, the minimum wage is roughly $2 a day. And I know that sounds absolutely insane since we live in the US, but that is the government data on what their standard of the minimum wage is. And what we've done is we interview the women in our cooperative. So we interview them on what's your cost of transportation, your average cost of transportation. How much does it cost to be able to access better nutrition or get access to a health insurance card? How much does it cost to invest in other income generating activities in your community? And from that, we've developed a multiplier of 5. So that multiplier of 5 is against the local minimum wage data. And it's based on these interviews we've had with our cooperative members. And so our agreement with them is that we're always going to compensate them a living wage for their labor. And make sure that when we do business with them, they're able to work in safe environments and they're able to generate sufficient income for themselves.
I've described this in the past as what you're doing is fair trade, but actually it goes far beyond fair trade. Can you tell us in what ways it goes far beyond fair trade?
Yeah, so fair trade has become really popular, especially people identify it with like coffee, farmers around the world, and very large coffee companies have really focused on sharing that they employ fair trade labor practices. The thing about fair trade and how we're slightly different from the way that they define kind of the fairness in doing business is fair trade doesn't necessarily take into account the cost of labor. Fair trade could be simply having a premium on a commodity price, which typically is based on supply and demand and not necessarily incorporates the labor, the actual work and the time that's used to make a product. And so you could buy a fair trade shea butter and it's essentially a better per pound price to the cooperative member or to the farmer, but that doesn't necessarily go into living wages. It doesn't necessarily look at, well, how long did it take you to make that batch of shea? How many hours did you work? Or for the time that you've put in, are you being compensated a living wage for that? It doesn't necessarily take into account the cost of production for the women, right? There are materials that they have to use, clean access to clean water. So that's purchased. You have to buy the water. Being able to have the production equipment, the production tools, the machinery, the grinder, etc. Fair trade oftentimes is not really looking at a very detailed, granular level of how much it's actually costing people to make the products that they're making. And that's how we differentiate ourselves, is really trying to determine, okay, if you're taking the time to do this, are you able to live at a higher standard through the business practices and through, the sales that you're going to generate from that time you're putting into making that product?
So you're paying attention to really raising the standard of living and the quality of life for those women, and making sure that they are plugged in terms of more empowered in terms of the economic decisions that are made. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's very holistic and comprehensive in the way that we work with our partners, our cooperative partners. We've actually also had women come to the US and go into a store and see the products on the store, see how much those products are being sold, and having a really transparent relationship with them so that they know that what they're doing in Ghana, what they're doing in these communities, it connects to a much larger market. And that it's like kind of like giving them awareness and giving them their own ability to see for themselves, which I think is really important oftentimes in these communities because they're so far away from the end market, right? The end consumer, they don't really know what's going on this side. They know that they make a product and it goes somewhere, but they, kind of like closing that gap and giving
Right.
them the ability to see it all the way to the end is really important. And then to your point, yes, we do a lot of training. When I say we, these are the local leaders who know how to communicate in the language, and who believe in the same thing that we believe in, right? But they have the tools to be able to do it from a local context, and we just support them. We're facilitators. We help connect the dots. We help bring resources when needed. But I think it's really important for people to know the local leadership is very key to our success because I live here and, things continue to operate when I'm not over there.
So what countries do you have relationships in terms of the women? What countries are they in?
So right now we work with women in Northern Ghana across 14 communities. So in the areas of like the Tamale region, we also work with women in an area called Damongo. So those are the communities, but within those communities, there are like mini villages that surround them or are close to them. And so those are the villages that we work with. But I've worked in several countries. Right now, we're not sourcing from all of these countries, but I've worked with shea producers in South Sudan. I got an opportunity to go there and work with women in Rumbek and Yei, and then Burkina Faso, as well as Mali. And that's where I served as a Peace Corps volunteer. And as we're growing, we're also not only looking at shea, we're also looking at other plant-based African ingredients like moringa, neem, baobab, and all of those are ingredients that are made locally that can be used in product development.
Wow, what are those products? Now you're just going right over my head, right? Talking about, like you did when I first met you, right? But I just want to point out this that one of the things I'm just so excited about your development, your progress, your success, everything that you have been doing. And I just want to invite our listeners, if you're just tuning in, you're tuning in to WPFW 89.3 FM. I am Reverend Graylin Scott Hagler, the host of What's at Stake every second Wednesday of the month. And we are having a conversation with Rahama Wright, the founder of Shea Yeleen.
Yes.
Rahama, I'm going to come back to this. We stood outside a building just last week on Benning Road in Ward 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went into a shell of a building that had
Yes.
gravel floor. And you told us about the plans for this building. Now, one of the headlines in one of the papers, and I think this is in the Washington Informer, that says a local founder is building the Yeleen Beauty Maker Space for beauty entrepreneurs. The space will be located in Ward 7 and is expected to be complete in late 2023. Tell our audience about this vision, this great vision.
No, I mean, I'm so excited about this, Reverend Hagler. And when I launched Shea Yeleen in 2005, initially as a 501c3 nonprofit, and then pivoted in 2014 to a social business model, I never thought I would be creating a manufacturing facility in our nation's capital. But over the years, I've discovered that when you're in this industry, and when I say industry, I'm talking about the beauty industry, I'm talking about the personal care industry. So the industry where you're making products for head to toe, hair care products, facial, body care. One of the biggest challenges for small business owners like myself is getting access to the right manufacturing partners. The way manufacturing is structured in this industry, it's meant to be exclusive, not inclusive at all. It is an
Tell me about that.
industry.
What is exclusive and not inclusive? What does that mean?
So exclusive means it doesn't allow for a lot of people to take advantage of it. It's exclusive. It means, they've been creating products for large companies for decades, and that's just the model. No one is really looking at, is there a different way to make our products? Is there a way to bring in more small batch, small businesses, micro businesses into this industry? It's very much about volume. It's very much about being able to produce as much product as fast as possible for very big companies who then have access to all the distribution that we see. And it's a system that keeps replicating and keeps going, and it leaves us out. So it's not including. So when I talk about it's not inclusive, it's not including small businesses like mine, businesses made by women of color, people of color, indigenous communities. It very much is about the large conglomerates. And so over the years, I've had struggles and challenges. And I don't know if you remember when I went to Detroit and I had to call you to ask you to see if there was a sister church in Detroit I could go to, because I had paid for an order and someone didn't deliver. And it was right when we had launched in Whole Foods. And I was losing my mind trying to figure out, how can I get these products for, an order that I have to ship out? And it was so stressful. And so I went to Detroit for the first time, ready to fight somebody.
Right.
Kidding. And I wish I could tell you that was just.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding, but.
Exactly. I was like, Reverend Hagler, if you don't hear back from me, this is where I'm going. But no, it's crazy. It actually is very crazy. And it's because we don't have the spaces. And so we are vulnerable to working with shady business individuals who will take your money and won't deliver. And then it costs so much money to hire a lawyer. So it's just this cycle of, small business owners trying to launch, trying to make it, but not having access to the ecosystem, not having access to the facilities that can partner with them to help them make a product. And here's the truth of the matter. You can't sell a product you can't make. And so this makerspace that we're building in Ward 7 is to provide the very first commercial shared manufacturing facility for early stage businesses, particularly businesses owned by people of color, women of color, Black-owned businesses who want to take advantage of and enter a growing multi-billion-dollar market industry, but for too long have been excluded because they don't have access to the right tools and resources to launch and grow their brands. I'm not creating anything new, Reverend Hagler. This actually is very successful in the food industry. There are commercial kitchens all over the city for food entrepreneurs who want to make, my grandma's famous chocolate chip cookies, or I created the best barbecue sauce. You have a place to go to make your products. You have a commercial kitchen to go to make your product. And then now you can take that product and connect it to a local grocery store or sell it online or ship it nationwide, sell to stores all over the country. And we've seen that. We've seen a lot of DC food businesses get national because they had access to a commercial kitchen.
But that's not there in the beauty supply business, right?
Exactly. That's not there in the beauty space. We don't have spaces. And so the vision is borrow from an industry that shows this works and do it for another industry, which is an industry, I'll give you a really quick statistic here. the beauty industry is growing rapidly. It's one of those industries that's recession proof, right? And it includes everything from like makeup that you put on your face to the shampoo you use on your hair or the soap that you use daily, right? And in 2021, McKinsey reports that the US beauty industry was valued at over $60 billion. And they highlighted the market share that Black-owned businesses had. And it was around 2.5% of that $60 billion. So 1.5 billion. However, Black consumers consumed 11%, over 11% of that number, over 6.6 billion. What does that show you? It shows you there's inequality in this industry. It shows you that even though we are one of the biggest spenders, our businesses and businesses owned by Black and brown companies are not getting our fair share of the market. And we're not because we don't have access to the spaces. We don't have access to the resources, the facilities to be able to make our products.
So when Madam C.J. Walker stepped out and did her Black beauty products, right, she cornered the market because nobody was really doing it.
Absolutely.
And then when folks began to realize there was all this money in Black products, they began to find ways in which to infringe on the market. And so basically you pointed out that you got into a real degree a lack of producers that's able to compete in that market, and therefore they don't command the proper share of the market that they should be commanding.
Yeah.
So this space is going to operate as a cooperative space, a collective space. How's that going to operate?
You know, I haven't figured that out fully. I am looking at cooperative business models. I don't know if in the beginning we will have like the ability to be a cooperative from a buying standpoint. So as members come in, you know, we become a buying cooperative. And so we're able to leverage our buying power to lower our costs, because when one person tries to buy a product, it's really expensive. But if you have a group buying it, you can negotiate, you know, better pricing, better terms. It's something that I'm still exploring. I like the idea of having a cooperative. The only thing I need to be sure and careful of is really understanding like how it would operate, right? Because I've been running, I'll give you an example. I've been running pop-ups in DC since 2018, creating retail experiences on behalf of other small businesses that sell products, everything from jewelry, other beauty products, apparel, home goods. And it's very informal, right? So it's not like a cooperative or association or anything like that. But what I've learned working on behalf of individuals and groups is you have a group of 40 people and 1.5 to 2 people do all the work.
Yeah, all right.
So even though I'm very attracted to the cooperative business model, there has to be very clear rules, regulations, management guidelines where it truly is people coming in and the whole working. And so I haven't figured that out, even though I've spoken to a couple of people. There's a professor at Georgetown University. His name is escaping me right now, but his whole thing is working on like cooperative business models. And I've had a couple of conversations with him. And then there is a group, Beloved Community Incubator, which is trying to create more cooperative businesses in DC that I've had conversations with over the last year.
Rahama, you're building this space and you're going to invite other companies and producers in. One thing that you said that was striking is that DC had no manufacturing space. That's what I believe I heard. And so now you're going to ask these small companies to come into this space that you're building out in order to produce their own products.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's smart? That's creating a competition against you. How does that work? To invite others in to that space to produce their own goods to put on the market. How does that help you?
Yeah, well, really quickly before I forget, the professor I was talking about earlier at Georgetown University, his name is Professor Anthony Cook. So he's the one that does quite a bit of work on cooperative business models. That is a great question, Reverend Hagler. Received it from other people. Like, why would you create competitors for your business? Because you're in the same lane. You're in this, you're making the same products that these people would also make. Well, I don't see it as competition. And I think that small businesses have been incorrectly modeled an idea of business that is not reality. Large companies partner with each other all the time. Large companies do initiatives with each other all the time. Not only that, I'll just give you an example of, let's say, I'm not going to say any specific large beauty brand, but if you look at the large beauty brands, the ones that are worth, $2 billion, $5 billion, what have you, look at their portfolio of products. They have brands underneath their company that sell the same products, but under a different brand. Why would they do that? Well, they understand that in any market, it's about your branding and it's about market position. So they're selling moisturizers to young people. They're selling moisturizers to older people. They're selling moisturizers to people that, may be acne prone, to people that may have dry skin, to people that only want natural ingredients. You see what I'm saying? It's a variety of products. The other thing too is when you're a small business, you're actually more competitive if you can partner with other small businesses. Going it alone and trying to build the largest business on your own is really hard to do. But if you come together as a group, this is where you can maximize your buying power. This is where if we're all using similar containers, similar, caps, but we're changing it with our own design, with our own branding, it's better for people to buy together and then share that cost. And actually during COVID, several small businesses in beauty that I know all came together, were forced to come together because large companies were buying components left and right. There wasn't enough for us. So if you weren't doing large volume orders, you weren't going to get your containers. So small businesses actually had to come together and say, hey, can we buy together so that, I'll take my 2,000, you take your 5,000, and it'll help us. So it showed me that if forced, we'll work together, but why not create and model a different way of business that gives us the ability to work together, that gives us the ability to share resources and help each other grow and scale. And here's the other thing. I just gave you statistics about the size of this industry, the inequality in this industry, and why there is inequality. There's no one who is selling, a Black and brown person who's selling a product similar to me that I see as my competitor, because already we're not getting enough market share. So why would I think that you were my competitor? We have a lot of work to do.
That's a progressive lens in which to look at these things, Rahama, is to look at it in terms of market share, and that folks can conquer more territory together than they can divide it.
Yes.
So you set up that space. It's going to be a beautiful space. You say there's going to be like a little showroom there. It's going to be manufacturing space. And if somebody is out there going, boy, how do I get involved in this? What can they do to get involved? And what type of micro businesses are you looking for to get involved in that site?
Yep. Well, we have a new website, YeleenBeauty.com. So YELEEN beauty.com. They can go there. They can send us a note. So that's the first step. We're also doing a survey. We want to understand who's out there, who's in the DMV, who's in this space, who's trying to figure it out and is just using YouTube and Google to try to build their business. There's a better way. You can join our community. We can help you. We can help each other, right? And so we are surveying until the end of November. We have a survey out there. You can get the survey on our website, or when you send us a note, we can send you a link to the survey. That survey is collecting data on everything from like the products that you're trying to make, the constraints that you're experiencing, whether it's access to capital, access to formulation services, figuring out your marketing and branding. We have a variety of questions that we've been asked, we want to get information on. And from that, we want to create kind of like the state of beauty in this area, in this region, and create that report. And then of course that feeds into what we're building. Because as we learn the needs, we can tailor our services and tailor the benefits to members because we've heard from them. In the same way in the communities that we work with in Ghana, we're just replicating that model over here. We reach out, we learn, we interview, we collect data, and then we develop tailored solutions that can make progress and that can actually make impact.
Good. How much investment has been made into that site, or is going to be made into that site?
So thus far, we've received funding from DEMPAD. So in DC, last year they had a grant called the Light Manufacturing Grant through their office. I was able to raise or receive $640,000 from that grant, but it goes to build out. So that grant is restricted capital. I can use it for, creating the space. So my construction fees, I can use it for equipment. So it's very much about the building. So all that investment is going into the building. And then we were able to get corporate funding through a partnership with the Washington Area Community Investment Fund, which is a local CDFI. We partnered on a grant through a corporation that then gave us $1 million that we split between the two organizations. And so we've raised just under 1.2 million so far, but still looking to raise an additional 1.5 million.
Excellent.
So for your listeners out there, reach out to me if you have any ideas on how we can raise the additional capital.
Excellent. Right. You're making great progress. And Jerry, talking about investments, there's been some investments in this build-out space, but we need investments at WPFW in terms of the contributions. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. And none of this escapes me at all. Thank you to your guest. This is very important, and we've got some housekeeping to do. I want to say thank you to Gabriella out of Clinton, Maryland, for your donation to the station and your support for this show. Gabriella, thank you very, very much. You started the ball rolling. We've got some momentum going here. But Rev, I'm going to try a new technique, if you will allow, something that we haven't done here. Because WPFW is, in fact, a collective of collectives. This show is a collective unto itself. So what we have to do is gather resources. And that's what we do when we're Pledge Drive. We gather resources to support the station. But I'd like to bring some resources to this show, if I may. I'll try a technique that was used in some of the game shows that you had seen on television, where they said, you can make a lifeline call. So I'm making a lifeline call right now to a friend of mine that is a resource in our community. Alelia, I'm calling out to you for your support of WPFW and this show. For those who don't know, Alelia is a descendant of Madam C.J. Walker. And she's in our community. And I believe she would be a huge resource to this effort. So, Alelia, if you're listening, I'm making a lifeline call to you to call, support WPFW. The number for everybody and you is 202-588-9739. Again, out of area, toll free on a landline, 800-222-9739. But perhaps you could join, if I may. Rev?
Go ahead.
I'd like to maybe bring her in on the show. 202-588-0893. The very idea that as a market, we represent so much, as consumers, we represent so much of this market. We need to represent that much of this market as producers. So thanks, Rev.
Thank you. Thank you. And, it's really powerful to just be talking with you, Rahama, because, I met you, I think you were fresh out of a Peace Corps then, with this burning passion to get something done, to connect where you've been to where you were. which was in DC, and you did that. But as I was listening to you talk and present the makerspace on Benning Road in Ward 7, I realized just how intellectually and theoretically you have grown in terms of business. And I was never more proud of anyone than to sit there and listen to you as you expounded and talked about these things, because one of the things is that you really have been a part of this idea that we can go further together. We might go quicker alone, but we're not going to go far. We can go further together. And so that's what you've been sort of working towards all of this time, whether in Ghana or whether here in Washington, D.C. If you're tuning in, you're listening to WPFW, What's at Stake. I'm Reverend Graylin Scott Hagley, your host every second Wednesday of the month. And we've been speaking to Rahama Wright of Shea Yeleen Beauty Products, and also of Makerspace that have been building that out. How can people get in touch with you if they want to carry on this discussion with you and find out what more they can do, and what type of enterprise? I'm gonna come back to that. What type of enterprises are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
But greater than that, what kind of attitudes are you looking
Yes.
for?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
You have products, but you may not have the attitude to engage with others. Go ahead.
No, that is so true. No, thank you, Reverend Hagler. And one of the first things I wanted to do when I moved to DC for my Peace Corps experience and service was to find the right church community. And I went to a lot of different churches in DC as well as Virginia. I think I might have gone to one in Maryland. And I remember talking to someone saying, I'm having a really hard time finding a fit. And someone said, well, don't you live on North Capitol? At the time I was living on North Capitol. I was like, yeah. They're like, well, there's a church right across the street from you. I was like, oh, I had totally missed that. And so go check it out. Reverend Hagler is a great guy. And I went and I was like, I think this is the church. And I came back again. And I just remember what resonated with me the most and why I wanted to be part of that community was because when you talk about God and when you talk about Jesus, for me, it's about how we are each other's brothers' keepers and sisters' keeper. How truly the reason we are here in this world is to support each other, to help each other, to bless each other. And the other thing about it was the first time I'd ever heard someone talk about Jesus as a radical. Jesus is someone who was like standing up for people. I'd never heard that in all my years. Of course I was in my early 20s, so it wasn't like I had all this experience, but that really resonated with me. So I just want to thank you for being that example. And part of my entrepreneurial journey going from, 2005 to now has really been a faith walk. And it has been about, how can I achieve this? I'm just one person. I'm under-resourced. How can I do this? And it really has been the power of faith and belief and having that community and having the Plymouth community supporting me. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Now to your question.
We're almost out of time. So
okay.
Very quick.
Yep. Now, in terms of the people we're looking for people who have already registered their businesses, who've already started. So we're not looking for someone who's thinking about starting. We want people who are already like, this is what I want to do. And they've already started, but are having challenges. You don't have to have a lot of revenue, right? You could be making, less than $25,000 a year. So it's really, really early stage. And we want people who care about our same values. So people who are not only just creating products to create products, but who are also care about environmental issues, social issues, and who want to build that into their business model. Because if we're going to be making products, we want to be making products that are also making a contribution to bettering our community and bettering our world. And the great thing is, when you talked about competition, well, for me, I wanted to create Shea Yeleen to create support in the communities that we source from. Imagine now we have 20 businesses sourcing from the communities I source from. That's exponential impact for our supply chain, not only in Ghana, but in the other communities that we will be working with.
Tell people again how to get in touch with you.
They can get in touch with me at Rahama, Rahama, at YeLeenBeauty.com. So YELEEN beauty.com. They can also get in touch with me through LinkedIn as well as Instagram or Twitter.
I want to thank you, the What's at Stake audience, for joining us this morning. I look forward to being with you again on the second Wednesday of the month. I would like to thank our engineer, Michael Nasala, and the entire WPFW community. I can't wait to be with you again. Be empowered, be uplifted, and be blessed, knowing that we have a lot yet to get done, and we will do it. Take care and blessings.